Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhaṃ saranang gacchāmi, Dhammaṃ saranang gacchāmi, Sanghaṃ saranang gacchāmi. Dutiyampi Buddhaṃ saranang gacchāmi, Dutiyampi Dhammaṃ saranang gacchāmi, Dutiyampi Sanghaṃ saranang gacchāmi. Tatiyampi Buddhaṃ saranang gacchāmi, Tatiyampi Dhammaṃ saranang gacchāmi, Tatiyampi Sanghaṃ saranang gacchāmi. So welcome everybody to our Tuesday, my robe, all right, Tuesday meditation here. And so got an email from somebody today, and they'd just seen an ordination. Okay, these three young men had decided to give up their lay life and to become monks. So the first kind of step they had to go through, they have to become what's called anagarikas, which means they have to take on the 8 precepts, so they can't sleep on normal beds, often have to sleep on the ground, and can't use any cosmetics except deodorant a little bit, and can't eat after noon, and those people become celibate. And then there's other ones, they can't steal, lie, take intoxicants, or kill anything. And so a kind of big step, big decision for these young men to make. And this person, I think, was very inspired to see them go forth like this. And so this is one of the interesting things, is that thinking about this, there's many kind of different types of what you might call like specializations in places of worship in Buddhism. So this particular place, it specializes in training monks. That's its purpose, kind of called a training monastery. Then there's other places that their specialty is more to serve community functions, like to serve the community in life cycle, especially like somebody passes away or birthday, somebody is born. These various things, people require monks at these events. And then there's other places that are devoted almost solely to meditation. So those are called kind of hermitages. And people go to these kind of hermitages, and then they don't have any duties except to meditate. That's kind of all there is that they have to do. And each of these kind of various functions, kind of whether it's training monks, whether it's helping in various life cycle events, whether it's engaging in meditation, all of these things are kind of part and parcel of the realm, a kind of Buddhist practice. So I remember there was sometimes I've gone to like one place, and some people get very kind of attached to their monastery or their temple or their place of worship. Like, this is the best, and then even some. So it can become like a football team attitude. Some not everybody, obviously. This, can happen. Kind of like I'm at this place, and this place is better than this place for this reason. And so the people who go to place X start to feel superior to the people who go to place Y, and look down their nose at them. And then people who are at place Y might feel superior to people at place X for another reason, and look down their nose at them. So I remember when I first started coming to Buddhism, I originally went to a Mahayana temple. And it was a kind of temple, so it trained people there. It had different functions, but also it was kind of, it taught meditation, and it was also kind of served in community events. It was in the city. And so one of the things that I encountered in some of the teachings was that, people who strive for Nibbana are very selfish. kind of looking down at at what they call the Hinayana. It was at this time. Yeah? And then I came to Theravada, and also then people sometimes will look down at Mahayana and be like, well, this is all invented later. You guys are making stuff up. I mean, there is some things to investigate here, various kinds of things to investigate. I mean, there are good and bad qualities in the world. But the interesting thing is that almost anywhere one goes that I found as a monk, a lot of the times when you go to a place, people at that place will sometimes think they're a whole lot better than people at other places. Not always, but it's interesting the frequency with which it occurs. So I remember if you ordain in a kind of meditation tradition, oftentimes people get very what you call respectful towards their teacher, whoever it is that's the leader of that group, kind of their guru. And they'll respect their teacher, but then disrespect the teachers of other people. Kind of like, my teacher is this and that. What about your teacher? Well, can he do this? No, my teacher can your teacher do this? What happened to your teacher? Oh, he did this. My teacher, when he was ordained, he did this. So you get to know all the statistics of the various kind of meditation teachers. And then this can also happen not only for monks looking at various teachers, but also sometimes for lay people looking at monks. I remember when I was a layman, you kind of be at a monastery, you know the various monks there, and you kind of have this like ranking in your head, like, okay, monk A, he's got these qualities, monk B, these qualities, monk C, and then in your head it's kind of like these kind of like baseball cards. The baseball cards have like runs batted in, they've got the percentage that people hit, and then you've got the photo of the person on the card, doing a baseball swing, and it can kind of be like that sometimes. People's kind of ranking of various monks. But all of these kind of various things, there's this very interesting sutta which is called the Migasala Sutta in the canon. And in this sutta, there's a person who says, goes up to the Buddha and says, I think it was her paternal uncle. She said, my paternal uncle, when he passed away, the Buddha said that he was a once returner. And that he was living a normal life. He was married, but then another relative of mine, when he passed away, he was celibate, and living the kind of celibate life of a householder. But when he passed away, the Buddha also said he was a once returner. So it's like, how is this, to be understood? How can we grasp the difference between these two people? What's the difference between them anyway? And so the question goes to the Buddha. And the Buddha kind of criticizes the person who asked the question. He says, he goes on in various ways. One of the things that he says is, basically, there's people who have one quality. Somebody may at one time be very concentrated. They can attain jhanas, they can do various things, but at a later time, they have this kind of unwholesome root to them. And at a later time, their good qualities disappear and bad qualities manifest. This is kind of paraphrasing. Just kind of, I can never exactly remember. Can't always exactly remember suttas. He says at another time, there's a person who looks like they have a whole bunch of unwholesome qualities, but they have a wholesome root. And so at a later time, their unwholesome qualities disappear and their good qualities appear. There's another type of person, from time to time, they engage in arguments. Kind of various, kind of like, they get angry and engage in arguments with people. But they have this kind of internal wholesome stream, and the Dhamma stream carries them along. So in other words, that person in the future will be subject to going forward. There's another person who engages in various kinds of arguments, gets into kind of battles with people, but they have this kind of unwholesome stream. And when the Buddha encompasses their mind with his, he knows in the future that person will be subject to decline, will not be subject to moving forward. Then at the end of the sutta he says, if I think the maternal uncle who wasn't celibate, he said, okay, he said, okay, I'll just call him person A because I can't remember. Person A was the one who was married. Person B was the one who was celibate. And he said, if person A, the one who was married, had equaled person B in virtuous behavior, person B wouldn't even be able to know his destination after death. And if person B had equaled person A in wisdom, person A wouldn't even be able to know person B's destination after death. In other words, one was stronger in wisdom, the other was stronger in virtuous behavior. And so it's not so easy to tell who's higher, who's lower, who, although they look like they're progressing in the future, will be subject to decline. Who, although they look like they're regressing in the future, will be subject to moving forward. At the end of the sutta, the Buddha says, only me, or somebody like me, should judge people in this way. So this is an interesting thing to think about, because when we come to practice meditation, one of the things that we have to do, one of the things that we have to learn is who can we imitate in terms of their wholesome qualities. And yet we have this kind of teaching, don't go judging people too much. Don't go thinking you're superior to people too much. It's one of the interesting things in the kind of forest tradition. There's this one story, I think I told it about a month back or so, where this monk went to stay in a cave. And before he went to the cave, all the villagers were warning him, like, don't go to the cave. There's this king cobra, I think it was like it sounded like a black king cobra, kind of this black snake, has this big hood. They're terrifying. Have you ever seen these snakes, by the way? They're huge. You think like a king cobra, okay, a little cobra. These things go from like here to, they're massive. And then when they're about to bite, they go up on they like rise up like this, so they can face you almost. They're huge. And so he went to stay there despite the warnings. And eventually at night, he saw this kind of king cobra coming out, to see him. And he said the way that it approached was in the manner of like a being who is confident or conceited in its power to harm others. So he set up this intention in his mind that he would spread metta, but he also gave it this speech. This was this kind of thing that you often see in the kind of forest tradition when monks encounter animals, they start talking to them. Okay, you think this and this and this while they're doing metta. And he said, one of the things that he said, I've come here to practice meditation. I haven't come here to harm anybody. If you harm me, you're going to be creating the karma that's going to drag you to hell. But one of the interesting things he said was, I didn't come here, I don't have this kind of conceited attitude that I'm superior to you just because I'm a human and you're an animal. He said, in fact, you may have hidden good qualities such that after you pass away as an animal, you get reborn as a human, and you advance faster than I do. You may even reach Nibbana before I do, because I'm still struggling under the weight of the foul kilesas. This is what he said. So this is a kind of interesting thing to contemplate, because obviously that monk could not or would not imitate the qualities of a snake, kind of going to go bite him. But we don't know what kind of hidden tendencies people have in their minds. We don't know what kind of hidden qualities a person has, a temple has, a monastery has, a tradition has, nestled within its kamma, nestled within its future possibilities. So what we can do is look right now to see what wholesome qualities the various people around us have right now for the sake of imitating them. We might look at their bad qualities for the sake of avoiding them. But what we can avoid is this judgment that I'm at this level, you're at this level, I'm at this level, you're at this level, because we don't know. The person who we're judging may be a stream enterer. We don't know. That's not possible for us to know. There was this famous story. Some of the monks or maybe not famous, but one that really kind of hit home. And some of the monks, if you ever go to kind of, very strong meditation traditions, some of those monks can kind of read minds. They're kind of very good at it. You can get the sense right away. And then if you're a monk, they don't hide it. Okay? But some of them, they have these kind of, some of them may have these kind of various noble attainments. And there was one monk in particular who was very, very famous in Thailand, one of the most renowned monks in the 20th century. And there was a monk who was telling me a story about his teacher. And this monk said about his teacher, he said, Ajahn so-and-so, he doesn't have any defilements anymore. But then his teacher said, actually, when he said that, I did have defilements. So in other words, even somebody who's an arahant, who can read minds, can still make mistakes in judging where somebody is at, wherever they are. This is why only a Tathagata, or somebody like a Tathagata, is fit to judge where a person is, what their quality is, what they're at, and where they'll be. So what this means for everybody, what this means for our practice, is that it makes our practice a whole lot more simple. Because one of the interesting things about when this kind of, I used to like to call it a football team mentality. You're kind of, like, okay, I'm a, or maybe like basketball team, because I think the Raptors just won. I'm a, Raptors fan. And a person thinks they're a fan of the Raptors, so they go around disparaging, every other team. Raptors are great, the Clippers, I don't know, I can't remember the basketball, the Knicks, I don't know how far can I, the Charlotte Hornets. They're all terrible. All of them are terrible except the Raptors. The Raptors are great. These guys are all terrible. And of course, the next year, one of those teams might win the championship. But one of the interesting things about this football team mentality is that what you notice when you see this football team mentality arise is that the people who really want to take it on, really get conceited about their associations, they don't tend to be doing much in their practice. That's what I've noticed, at least. They tend to go to the place and hang around there doing stuff, but you don't see them meditating all that much. It's kind of like hanging around, It's kind of, and on the basis of their hanging around these people, they get conceited. Conceited about their practice, conceited about the reputation of the place they're associated with. And this is the true danger of what they call asmimana, this conceit I am. There's many dangers that come from this conceit. Conceit I am, I'm superior, I'm inferior, I'm equal. One of the main dangers is that it makes a person heedless. It makes a person unable to see the balance of good and bad qualities in their own mind because they're focused outwards on the balance of their reputation, on the balance of the reputation of the people they associate with, on the balance of good and bad qualities in the people around them. It can blind a person to their own progress or their own decline. This is the danger, one of the dangers, one of the biggest dangers of asmimana, of this conceit. I'm better, I'm worse, I'm equal. So when we come to practice meditation, what we try to do is put this conceit aside. Indeed, there may be these good qualities to a person. Indeed, there may be these bad qualities to a person. Indeed, there may be these good qualities to a place. Indeed, there may be bad qualities to a place. Indeed, there may be good qualities to a tradition. And there may be bad qualities to a tradition. But when we look for these qualities, we look for them only for the sake of taking them on ourselves, basically. Finding the good qualities we can imitate, finding the bad qualities we can put aside. Because for a person who grasps onto the reputation of the people they associate with, who takes that on as their own, that person puts blinders over their ability to see their own qualities. It's kind of like, sometimes you might see there's a little bit of a mess and somebody covers it up with something, and that mess kind of grows mold, various things. In the same way, when conceit covers our bad qualities, it grows, becomes moldy, until it becomes totally obvious through the falling away of many good qualities that actually our conceit is not true. This is the interesting thing about this conceit. Whenever it arises, it starts to undermine the very perception that it's trying to hold on to. We can see this on the levels of individuals, on the levels of societies. So I remember I used to really like reading history. And one of the interesting kind of historical societies to read about is ancient Rome. It's kind of this first Western superpower anyway. They had superpowers in China, big powers in India. But this was the largest Western superpower. And when you read about the early history of Rome, they had this kind of incredible inner strength. And it's kind of, there were times when that city was almost like defeated. There was this one general named Hannibal. And he came and basically killed all of their senior officers this one time. Kind of rode over the mountains on elephants and, killed almost all their senior officers. And they were able to kind of rally back from that and eventually defeat Carthage. But at the end of the Roman Empire, they couldn't even stop a single unit, a single barbarian army from sacking the whole city of Rome. It just came in and sacked the city of Rome. And this was after they asked to stay in Rome like 4 times. They didn't even want to sack the city. It's just the Romans had become so conceited, so degenerate, that they could not keep their good qualities up. And so at this time, actually, one of the last things they did, these people kept asking to stay. They're like, you can't stay. You're barbarians. We're Romans. We're superior. So they sacked the city. And after that, Rome had barbarian kings from Germany for many, many centuries, I think. And it was called the Dark Ages. But this kind of conceit set in for the Romans once they became a superpower. It was once they became a superpower that they started to fight amongst themselves. They stopped cultivating their virtues. That many of the things that led them to have strength fell away. And over the centuries, over the years, it declined to the point where they could not even fend off a single barbarian force. And this is how conceit works on a societal level. Whatever it is, it's one of the reasons. I think I read that somewhere in a sutta. Whatever it is a person thinks they are, once they start thinking that, it's almost already started to become otherwise. It's almost already started to change. So this is why the Buddha recommends this attitude of humility very strongly. This attitude that I am not what I think I am. What I think I am is subject to change. Therefore, wherever we look, at whoever we look, at whatever tradition, at whatever temple, it's good to perceive them in terms of both their good and bad qualities, but mainly their good qualities for the sake of taking them on. Mainly their bad qualities for the sake of removing them from our own minds. And when we have this perception, then we can avoid this pitfall of conceit, this pitfall that can stop our wholesome qualities from growing, that can cause our unwholesome qualities to grow. And we can move forward with humility. Because when a person is humble, they don't have to worry that much. It's when a person grabs onto this kind of sense that they're very good, very elevated, very superior, that things start to worry a lot. It's because this is based largely on other people's perceptions of them, how other people treat them, and this can always fall away. And when a person is low to the ground, when a person realizes that whatever it is I think I have, that's subject to change. So I'd better be heedful to make my wholesome qualities grow. I'd better show respect to the people I interact with. When a person has this, they don't have so much to fear. And it's kind of like when somebody's low to the ground, you see like something very high up, when the wind comes, it kind of knocks it over. These things are very low to the ground, the wind comes and blows all over the place, it doesn't really affect them. It's kind of, they're not, have this conceit. And this is one of the reasons why in the canon, actually, this, I think this, when we say respect, humility, contentment, gratitude, the word for humility is actually with lowered sail. That's what it means in Pali. I didn't translate it that way, but kind of with lowered sail, with your sail lowered. Because when a sail is up, whatever wind comes pushes, pulls it, drags it all over the place. Can't stay still, can't go in the direction it wants to go. So this is why when a person's sail is lowered, when a person's always on the lookout for good qualities in their own mind, doesn't trouble themselves so much about external people's good qualities, that their life becomes more easeful, that their practice becomes more clearly defined, that they're more able to see where they're going, how they should get there, and they're more able to train their mind in line with the principles that make them happy now, that lead them to happiness in the future, that cause them to grow in the Dhamma, and that put them on the path to the end of suffering.